Sports professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. You're on the record. Morphed back 50 years ago, almost to the day, a neophyte kid just trying to get through Harvard Law School, but enjoying sports. Hockey fighting, criminal law, great topic. I proposed to a third-year criminal law professor for sponsorship, except two things, he said. There is no such thing as sports law, and if there was, we don't teach it. Well, a bet, a win, a squash game later, that's another story for another day, able not only to get the paper done, but start on my passion. And years later, by the way, 480 schools teaching sports law, business, administration, politics, and the like. And over 95% of the Big Five sports teams have sports lawyers directly or indirectly involved in them. Certainly has come a long way. I'm excited and honored to bring my Harvard law education and background in teaching to this business over the last 50 years. The books, Sport Business Handbook and otherwise. And most important, my dynamic partnership with CCON, Sports Entertainment Innovation Conference, every year in Las Vegas, but also other partners, USA Today, FinTech, and a few other exciting announcements to be done down the road. Bottom line is, the pandemic certainly changed the way we think about sports. Clearly the ultimate appointment viewing, but from the business, shared information, best practices, survival of the fittest, and creativity, and all of those issues are on display with some of the thought leaders you have heard from and will continue to hear from every week. A look back, a look forward, what are the trends, how do we survive and thrive from the pandemic? All of those issues brought to the table with some of my friends in the business who are the best and the biggest thought leaders. Have done it for years in the past, will continue to do so. Hopefully, you will continue to join me. Thanks again. Sports professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. As we've said, it's on the record. Exciting time in NBA land, everywhere else as well. Certainly for teams that didn't really go as far as they thought they would go, but that's everybody, including the people that get to the NBA Finals and lose. Everybody else is a winner, but except all of those other teams, wait till next year. That's the beauty of competition, the beauty of sports. We'll get to Peter Feigin, who is the president of the Milwaukee Bucks, talking about a lot of issues, Greek freak, small market, everything else, particularly timely these days. But before we get there, let's look at the 5 opening bells, what happened over the last couple of weeks. Number 1, Brock Purdy and the Niners agree to a $181 million guaranteed deal worth up to about $265. But that 181, by the way, is fully guaranteed. And while Josh Allen and Joe Burrow still lead in guaranteed money, he surpasses Purdy, Adam Herbert, Jalen Hurts. And understanding the team's confidence in his past performance, the move secures the quarterback position in the near future and also increases the higher numbers for the quarterbacks that haven't signed yet. So goes the market. It's number 1. Number 2, Scottie Scheffler, PGA Championship, 3rd major, first non-Masters major. The winner's share climbing to $3.42 million. I can guarantee you that money will be used, but it's not driving Scottie Scheffler. His legacy will, and the $3.3 million up to $3.4 is a fitting tribute to how important he has been. U.S. Open, 21.5, Masters, 21 million. The bottom line is all of these majors are significant as far as purse increases, and the 4 majors could surpass 20 million in purses by 2027. Number 2. Number 3, TKO raises its 2025 outlook, signing and including the strong UFC and WWE results. The revenue guidance to $3.075 billion, up from $2.9 billion. It ain't a rounding error, by the way. It is a significant report and result, depending on UFC live events, the premium hospitality packages, the fight nights, the Latin American and Asian markets. All of those together, very, very significant as far as revenue. That's number 3. Number 4, Dick's Sporting Goods acquiring Foot Locker for $2.4 billion across 20 countries. It strengthens Dick's negotiating power with key suppliers, Nike, Adidas, Puma, and others. The distinct retail cultures are a bit different between Dick's and Foot Locker. It's going to require some significant infrastructure to standardize and harmonize the brand. Cash and debt with the with the 2025 reports, very significant, and the overall credentials and bottom line means that this is going to be bigger and better than ever after the growing pains. All mergers include growing pains. This will be no different. That's number 3. Number 4. Number 5, the Golden State WNBA debut. Sky-high expectations. Over 17,000 fans for their May 15 preseason home game. They expect to generate more than $20 million in ticketing and sponsorship revenue in the inaugural season, and the success has spurred renewed discussions on further WNBA expansion in other metropolitan areas. Oh, look, the NBA and how to generate additional revenue, gambling, streaming, all of those important, but really even more important in relatively small markets. Look at the success of Oklahoma City, look at Memphis. There are a lot of one-man band cities that owe their future existence to the symmetrical help of the NBA, to the socialized nature of the revenue sharing, and to the fact that everybody kind of buys into a equal partnership of the NBA, international and otherwise. And, so what if the Milwaukee Bucks have expanded their implicit marketing efforts to Greece because of the Greek Freak? They're buying the NBA. It allows teams in small markets to survive and thrive. Enter Peter Feigin. He's been involved in a lot of issues after his Franklin and Marshall graduation, Six Flags, the Knicks, the Entertainment Sports Services Group, Deluxe, and others. He has been president of the Milwaukee Bucks since 2014. Wes Edens, the Lazary Group, absolute confidence in his ability to manage. By the way, the generation of an arena where the deal hadn't been quite finished. Everybody knew it was kind of going to happen, but he and they bought the franchise knowing the I's were not dotted and the T's were not crossed, which when you look at arena development is usually not the way it is. Took on a bigger risk, got the deal done. The franchise, according to Forbes, 15th in the NBA, $4.1 billion, and considering their market, 25% increase in valuation, $16 million in income, it is masterful, and a lot of it is because of Peter Feigin. Here he is now. Sports professor Rick Horrow inside the $1.3 trillion business of sports. We're on the record and iconic interviews. This is one of the fun times that I normally reserve that's really important to me because you get to take people who are titanic in the industry and talk a little bit about them. It's not just them, but what they've done too. But Peter Feigin has been involved with the Bucks and Fiserv Arena since 2014, onward and upward. Great person, great executive, small market, incredible success of the team. And more than that, he is just a good person. How's that for an intro?
I love it. I didn't know we were in the trillions, number one, so I feel like I'm not in touch. I don't have my finger on the pulse, but very, very sweet. My mom will be very happy.
Trillion sells more books than billions, so get used to it. Whatever gazillions will be more than trillions. So let's get into education. You graduate 1992, Franklin and Marshall, and the world's your oyster. Do you ever think you're going to end up a few years later running an NBA team?
Never. I worked at Madison Square Garden early in my career. I had a quick stint at Six Flags theme parks, which was like a great entertainment, destinational, retail, marketing, and promotion experience. I was at Madison Square Garden and just loved my experience with the Knicks and kind of understanding the massive market and effect on a pretty significant DMA and kind of where to go. And I said, when I left the Garden, like, boy, it'd be pretty tough to find something that was that great. And if you told me running an NBA franchise and kind of a district and arena was in the future, I would have told you you're crazy.
Well, but there was also that stint preparing you for another diverse set of activities, which is kind of launching or nurturing an organization that caters to people whose time is very valuable, but also an entirely new demographic. NetJets and President Marquis for 7.5 years. How'd that happen, and were you happy with that? What kind of experience did you glean from that?
I think that was a big point of differentiation for me. I got some experience outside the sports entertainment industry on a much bigger scale, a little more global, same type of core competence of acquisition, retention, service, kind of got my larger P&L experience and operational experience in a different industry. So it was an unbelievably exciting platform. And again, I've always been excited who the end users and customers were. So at NetJets and Marquis Jet, that was it. It was the greatest C-level executives in the world, as well as every high net worth individual, as well as like your celebrities. It gave us like a really fun customer group.
Yeah, but also it honed your experience, not that you needed honing, on selling. This was a group of people who were fun people to be around, but it's high leveraged executives. And you were able to tell them, we're going to get you from point A to point B quicker, more efficiently, and we're up and coming. And I know your advocacy and selling is important to you.
No question. I mean, I kind of simplify, and we've talked before, the world is what's the call to action, what's the acquisition, what's the retention, and all the cool touch points that go in between there to build that relationship direct with consumer.
So April 16, 2004, Wes and Edens and Lasry buy the franchise, paying 500 million. It's a whatever the number is. It's not that relevant today because it's a wonderful investment. Whether it was today, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and they waited, I guess, a little bit of time, 5 months, 6 months, before they installed you as president. What were they waiting for?
Well, it's I was working with them consulting on the deal and then the business plan going forward. I knew them. They were both parents of the school my identical twin brother now runs as the head of school of, and I had known them and worked with them before, and they kind of brought me on as a consultant, a moonlighting consultant, as they were trying to set up an infrastructure as they were purchasing the team. And, for me, it was just the right timing. They had asked me to help search for a CEO. I had to set them up with awful candidates, which I did to put myself in a better position, obviously. And after they vetted those terrible candidates, like they only had one choice in the middle of the summer to choose me, which was the greatest kind of lottery win of my life.
Ladies and gentlemen, he is kidding because there is no better candidate than him. But I do want you to know, we're coming clean on this, that apparently his identical twin brother got him the job with the Bucks. That's the leverage and the contacts here, right?
He will say that to you directly. I give him somewhere 60 to 64.5%. Yes.
Yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
less than that, and we all
Yeah.
understand that. So, as you start doing this deal, it is kind of interesting as we talk about Fiserv for a couple of minutes. When you look at the chronology of how owners buy teams in cities, they usually get their stadium deal totally buttoned up, and then they run the risk. You guys, or they, after Herb Cole, that was an entirely different situation. How do you, first of all, convince them as a consultant that, yeah, we're going to get this deal done. Go put the money down. We'll figure out how to get the arena later.
Yeah, I didn't. We went in and kind of like with great hubris said we're going to get this done. A little hesitant. I lived in the Hilton Hotel, like in downtown Milwaukee, for the first for the first 4 to 5 months as I was going back and forth to the State House in Madison, kind of lobbying for public funding to mix in with our private funding. So I think we went in with the attitude which really prevailed is like any city, especially a small market, is not going to lose their NBA team. It would be devastating because it's not coming back, and it's such an economic catalyst for so many other things. And we really wanted to give them the vision of economic development through the district and through the arena, which obviously eventually happened.
There are a lot of people in buying and selling franchises who almost want the ultimate buyer to fail because they couldn't get the arena done on their watch why are these guys getting done on their watch? Not only did that not happen in Milwaukee, but you got a famous, revered senator and his group to, at least the published reports say, cough up 100 million in addition. So did you guys. And then the city comes up with their piece, and a $500 million arena comes to fruition. Kudos. Hard to do.
Hard to do, and Senator Cole gave 150 million
Sorry.
towards the thing. No, I think it's really important. He happens to be
Yeah.
one of the real heroes throughout this. Probably one of the phantom philanthropists of our generation, who is specifically kind of just given the state of Wisconsin through the education system, the arena, and everything else so much. But part of the deal, after as he sold the team for 550 million, was he would contribute 150 million to the construction of an arena.
So let me get the chronology right. So the deal gets done in October, or the deal gets done in April of 2024. July 25th, July, the Wisconsin Senate passes the deal. The House passes the deal. The governor signs it. Milwaukee City approves it. And then the following April, you get a 30-year lease deal. The chronology, again, we'll finish and go on, is kind of interesting. It's not the way it's normally done. Again, congratulations.
Yeah, no, it was kind of perseverance, great team. Like I said, I work for a group of owners who kind of delusionally don't take no as an answer. So they, we were motivated to get this done. It wasn't a difficult vision. This is a market that desperately loved the sports team. This was development in downtown. And this was, for us, like a real ripple effect that we could affect like a large swatch of land in Milwaukee that desperately needed it.
Now, then as president, when did you move out of the hotel and realize this is a real deal?
I think once we got passed in the budget, like in the annual state budget, was
Yeah,
the time to get a real bed and a real person and stop, considering the concierge my best friend in the city.
that's good. Sometimes it's leverage. I'm here in
So,
Miami, and Tua sold his house, so everybody's going crazy. He's not leaving. Don't worry about it. That's not the way you do things, and everybody's transparent these days. Do you remember October 3rd, 2018? Was that an important date to you?
well, I mean, there are a few dates, like we've been very lucky to open an arena,
Yeah, there you
to,
go. Yeah,
on that date we've had an NBA championship, we've had some, monumental kind of physical, yeah, but a great, kind of there's no experience. And I always tell my counterparts or people who have the opportunity, oh my God, like if you can give birth to like an
yeah.
arena, an object, a building. Like I was never in real estate development to the core as I've been in the last 10 years. And it's a whole different feeling to watch something come from concept to execution to, reality, which is just so much fun.
That's a random date because that was your Bulls exhibition game. But yet, you had a concert and make sure everything was okay. Concerts a couple of weeks earlier. But the bottom line is, it's also not that easy to build one of these buildings, a $500 million building in the middle of a downtown, and be so fan friendly that it generates excitement beyond just the team. And you guys did that again.
Yeah, again, like at the, real focus on who the end users are. How do we make this a destination? How do we make it a meeting place? And then like we had this unbelievable opportunity to redefine the experience.
Yeah.
Kind of the Bradley Center, which had been there previously, had been a little bit antiquated, kind of couldn't really attract the entertainment side of the business because of its limitations. And we were able to kind of reinvent like not only what basketball is, but the whole entertainment side of it as well, to really create, 140, 150 events a year, and change kind of the pace of downtown Milwaukee.
And it's July 2021. You'll remember that. It's a little later because of COVID. So your game, you beat Phoenix, the first championship in 50 years. COVID. It's like you can't catch a break. But obviously, it was time well spent, and people remember Kareem and Lou Alcindor and those days. And then there was this 50-year gap, and you did it. You brought a championship to a small market. Again, feeling then, obviously, tremendous pride.
Oh, personal, professional, it just emotes like it is that special. Like it's hard to explain like what it means, especially for a core group of us that had kind of been involved in the new management of the team, the erection of the new arena, kind of everything to be a part of it and actually get to be a part of a championship was a surreal experience that, literally took my breath away. Kind of one of the rare times, as you can tell, I talk
Yeah.
fast, I'm a sales guy to go. That was a moment where I was paralyzed for a few moments.
Uh, and you didn't grow up in Milwaukee, obviously, but you are a man of many cities, man of many talents. So, have you been embraced as Milwaukee since you walk on the street? Do people you don't pay for your own meals now, do you?
Yes, I'm well fed and I pay for my own meals, but no, I would say this is the Midwest, like extremely friendly. I'd say it's also provincial. I could be here for 50 years if I wasn't born here. I'll never be a Milwaukeean. They're tough. They're tough
Yeah.
that way to get it. But there's no bigger marketer, salesperson, cheerleader for this city than I am. I've loved it. I've loved the experience. I see the promise of it. I think like we hit way above our weight
Yeah.
in almost every category of experience, whether that's visitation, whether you live there. So, I could never have imagined a decade later I'd be so attached to the city of Milwaukee.
Let's define the hitting above the weight because you are one of the small markets in the NBA quite clearly. Even the most aggressive SMSA definition has you between 1.5 million and 2 million. It's in the 30s or 40s. And you look like Oklahoma City or Memphis or Orlando, except you share the market with the baseball team, and you really do share the market with the football team, although it's a little farther away. Uh, hard. What's the biggest challenge of operating in a small market?
Well, what your opportunity is. So, what you want to do is redefine what the limits are. So, obviously, when we talk about media, there's like what the DMA, what the audience is valued at, what it is. And other than that in the impressions, everything else is to really kind of reimagine the way you can get defined. So I told you earlier in my career, I'd been Madison Square Garden, and I kind of didn't realize how easy it was to take orders and to market and
Yeah,
leverage,
right.
in a big way. Well, in Milwaukee, you are grappling to sell everything you possibly can. It is like a battle to how to get premium value on any inventory you're selling, how to increase like the value of your tickets. So it all has to do, everything matters, like what the experience is, what the access is, what your touch is, to get it done, to really build that value and how you position yourself as a brand and an organization make a very, very big difference. So for us, it's kind of how do we not think of ourselves as a small market, think as a leader and like create excellence at every venture and every detail counts. And I think that's a little different than, kind of the David and Goliath, like, kind of fighting, doing it
Yeah.
like we want to be innovative, we want to be the leader, we want to be in the 30 teams of the NBA that are kind of fighting for what's next.
Do you share best practices and embrace common promotion with the Packers and the Brewers and the four Chicago teams that want to invade your territory? Maybe the wrong way to put it, but
Yeah,
what's
so
your
I'd
thought?
say like unbelievable relationships, less with the Chicago. We've got Blackhawks preseason games, and it's been a great relationship. And I would say like our partners on the concession business, Levy, is headquartered in
Yeah,
Chicago, and we have similar partners. But I would say the Packers and the Brewers have been unbelievable, unbelievable partners. Rick Schlesinger, who runs the
yeah.
Brewers, Mark Murphy, who runs the Packers, are a phone call away, and they really mean it. And things, especially on the community side when we get the power of our three franchises together, it usually is a short conversation of whose ever idea it is of like, yes, I'm in. Let's figure out how to leverage these three teams. I think it's one of the rare examples of three major sports league teams that actually work together, that actually have fun, that actually, have all of it, even to the simplest thing of having our players and organizations at each other's games, which doesn't
Yeah.
sound like a big deal, but it's a big deal and it's a regular happenstance. So yeah, I think it's a source of pride for all of us. We think it's like what makes Wisconsin special.
Well, and what makes your relationship special is the ability to attract and maintain talent in what people would call a small market. Giannis is Giannis's long-term signing and the commitment to Milwaukee, that goes beyond the X's and O's, doesn't it?
Oh, that definitely goes, that's about, kind of the culture, which is the kind of behavior, the way we represent, the way we operate as an organization. I mean, it's also goes to the people in the community of Milwaukee. This is where Giannis has grown up. This is where
Yeah.
he's had his family raised, where he now has four children, where his kids go to school, where he feels comfortable. That's important. I always tell like the best story kind of about how things have evolved is, 10 years ago when we acquired the team, not one player owned a house in the state of Wisconsin. And that doesn't sound like a big deal. That's a big deal when people don't want to put down roots and
Yeah.
don't want to live in your town. And now it's really the outlier, the very, very young player or, 1 year veteran, contract who doesn't buy a house. We are a place where people settle and people want to raise their family and people understand our resources and infrastructure to live there. So that's a really important part. I always say the only thing we can't control is the weather. Everything else,
Yeah.
like we are going to make excellent.
Yeah, and so you look at the major sports and their fundamental structures. Green Bay, Wisconsin, and the Packers wouldn't exist if the NFL didn't structurally share revenue to allow that, obviously. And then you have some of the other leagues. I suspect the NBA is kind of in the middle where you're all for all for one, except people in LA. The lights are brighter in LA, Chicago, and New York, and you've always kind of got to look over your shoulder. How would you assess your friends and the other 31 partners?
Well, I always laugh because, before I got this job and when I was at Madison Square Garden, I was a capitalist, and now I might be a little bit more of a socialist.
Socialists, yeah.
Yeah, to get in. So, it really is, the coastal markets, rightfully so, just have a disproportionate advantage to, for revenue on the revenue side. And that of course puts them in a disproportionate advantage on to be able to spend, without losses on basketball, operations and kind of infrastructure and things like that. But I think the league has evolved in a way, whether it's revenue sharing, whether it's distribution of national media, whether it's global, that, there are ways to, be very successful as a small mid-market team in the NBA. And it gets more evenly distributed like over time. So yeah, I am still like edging towards socialist and fight for the little guy and want to get, every piece of revenue we possibly can. But the landscape, especially with it becoming more global and where our revenues are coming from, has worked out well for small and mid-market teams.
Well, my friends in Oklahoma City and Orlando, and I suspect Memphis the same way, believe that they own 1/32 of a macro global partnership, which makes the quibbling between local markets a lot easier to deal with, don't you think?
Well, I would say it's even better than, starting with David Stern and certainly with Adam Silver. Like we are a collaborative. There's no question about it. Like when you ask about working with the Packers and working with the Brewers, I mean, I will tell you, I have 6 or 8 team presidents that I am on, constant calls with for best practices. I think we want to kill each other on the court and like really help each other off the court because we are not competitive set for best practices. Everything from ticket operations to broadcast to to what our labor costs are and our operational efficiencies are. So the NBA has gotten to such a place that it truly is a best practice, and there's certainly no team operational animosity among the franchises.
And so when you look at Forbes and Sportico and all those net worth studies, where the top guys always use them because that's really valuable, and the bottom guys disdain them because they want higher numbers. At the end of the day, it's a value that doesn't necessarily reflect size of market. It reflects what you do with the revenues as you get them. You guys at Forbes's number, about 4 billion and number 15, I'm sure those numbers don't reflect a number that you maybe not. You wouldn't correct me even if we knew the exact numbers. But the bottom line is, you all look at the numbers relative to the increase in value on a year-to-year basis. I mean, your Forbes numbers is up 25% over the year before, and I suspect the Celtic deal didn't hurt anybody.
Yeah, I mean, listen, back to 10 years ago when Wes and Mark and Jamie bought the team at 550, Ballmer bought the Clippers at
Yeah.
2.1 billion 2 weeks later. So, talk about increase the value and what the valuations are and how it's really what price are people willing to pay and how does it continue to grab value. And I think you'll see that as live sports continues to grow.
Yeah. Your team is not in a state of flux. Your team is building to get better, even as we speak. And one of the things that I noticed is the emotional passion, especially during the championship, but right after, during your playoffs, and outside, and how excited people are, and they're vested in the community, and your building brings everybody together. The RNC convention and then the Democratic thing a couple of weeks later as a response to some of that, and all the concerts. So you're building a machine. How often do you wake up, maybe it's daily, saying, look, I'm looking over my shoulder, we got to get better every day?
Oh, I think if you're not paranoid, you're kind of not in the game.
Yeah.
I think if you're not looking at your competition, if you're not looking at trends in the marketplace, if you're thinking about, what's going to happen from everything from, regional sports networks to concerts to family shows to how do we get NCAA tournament games to, what's the right pretzel to serve, in your arena. If you're not on that, because it all has to do with, having your finger on the pulse of shifting consumer trends and kind of directionally, like it's probably not the right game for you.
Yeah.
Like this is ever changing, ever aggressive, like a very difficult operational business. But I think like the paranoia is great. We want the disposable income. We want people to spend their leisure dollars with us.
Final question. So, where are the Bucks, the NBA, and Peter Feigin 10 years from now?
Peter Feigin hopefully is kind of having a lot of fun, hopefully working with the folks I work with now on a much bigger platform, kind of thinking about global teams and operations and a huge portfolio, which continues to grow. And to do it, the Bucks are probably in their third or fourth iteration of championships and having like a lot of fun growing the market, probably have an extended, I mean, 10 years from now, I mean, maybe we'll have we will have the, professional team in Greece as an extension. And
Yeah.
we'll move Oshkosh, we'll move our G League herd team to to Athens and have some fun. But just great. We continue to, like, the bar keeps getting raised. The opportunities are kind of endless with who the audience is and like how global, kind of basketball is. And to be honest with who our ownership is, like our ownership is kind of on a global platform and it's not like little thinking. It's kind of big deals and they love to kind of leverage this awesome brand, as part of that.
Tell you one thing, the NBA, Milwaukee, the Bucks, everybody around the industry is in good and better hands because Peter Feigin is involved in all of this. Thank you very much, Peter. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Rick. Great getting back together.
Sports Professor Rick Horrow, 1.3 trillion, even more. Dollar business of sports. Speak with you soon. Peter Feigin brings a wealth of experience at a time where the NBA most badly needs it. Small markets, big markets, it's all part of a diverse partnership. And certainly the NBA bullish, and more bullish. Thanks to Peter Feigin and otherwise. Well, let's look at the 5 to watch over the next couple of weeks. Number 1, Roku's $10 million MLB Sunday leadoff deal resumes, highlighting a rights fee disparity. Roku kicks off his second season of Sunday night leadoff streams on May 11 with the Cubs Mets MLB TV process, the hybrid arrangement that airs on Roku devices and MLB TV. The ESPN deal stepped away, or ESPN did, the $550 million per year deal, and there had to be a patchwork. Roku City screensaver, reaching over 40 million U.S. households, further elevates the engagement. Company executives say the initiative addresses the fragmentation of the sports media, positioning Roku as both a content creator and a streaming platform. A big deal. That's number 1. Number 2, the estate of Paul Allen formally puts the Trailblazers on the market, probably not to be culminated until after the 2025-26 season. Valued at approximately $3.85 billion in a relatively small market, the Blazers rank among the league's top 10 franchises by valuation. The sale includes the first sale of the Blazers since Allen's passing, separate from the estate's NFL and MLS holdings, underscoring the franchise's and standalone brand strength. Remember also, we just talked about Peter Feigin, the Milwaukee franchise. They have another team in their market. So this is kind of an interesting tie-in and dynamic to the whole discussion we had earlier, but we'll have to see what the numbers will be. That's number 2. Number 3, Reddit co-founder Alexis Ohanian buys a 10% stake in Chelsea's women's FC football club. The valuing of the club is at $265.2 million. His stake at $26.5 million. He gets a seat on Chelsea FC's board and follows his successful minority investment in Angel City FC, the women's soccer team in the U.S., expanding media rights deals and sponsorships, and certainly revenues past $30 million last season. And Ohanian's entry only highlights institutional confidence in the financial upside of elite women's football. That's number 3. Number 4, Jeep returns as a Juventus shirt sponsor in a €69 million deal through 2029. It instates and reinstates one of European football's most recognizable commercial partnerships after Jeep's previous 8-year stint ended in 2024. The generating deal over €15 million net annual profit when factoring in activation revenues and across Serie A broadcast markets. It complements the Drive Electrified brand campaign, and certainly for the team, it's big dollars. That's number 4. And then finally, number 5, the eSport World Cup announces 40 organizations for a $20 million club partnership program. The G Sports T1, Fnatic, and others receiving tier funding up to $1 million each to bolster content production, live event activations, and global marketing initiatives. EWC says the program is destined and designed to help teams expand their audience reach, particularly Latin America, Southeast Asia, and other areas. Esport here to stay, not only here to stay, but here to dominate. Well, that's on the record for this week. We'd like to thank Peter Feigin for his insight and expertise. I'd like to thank Callie Kazire for helping us put the show together as always. We'd like to thank you for listening and watching. Given the profound economic expansion of all of these programs over the next few weeks and after the summer, join us next week when we continue to bring stars to On the Record for your digestion and analysis. Thank you all in the $1.3 trillion business of sports. Sports Professor Rick Horrow, speak with you soon.